Imagine walking into your yard and everything that used to be trash is now a living, edible corner of the garden. Today I'll show you 10 simple, real projects that turn ordinary plastic bottles into planters, self-watering systems, lights, and even a mini greenhouse. These are cheap, safe, and doable with only a few tools, and I'll show exact steps so you can start today. Stick around. Timestamps are in the description so you can jump straight to the builds you want. Questions? Drop them in the comments as you watch. Welcome to Backyard Fortune, practical garden hacks for small spaces, tight budgets, and big ideas. In this episode we're covering genius plastic bottle DIYs that transform your garden. Every project tested for ease, safety, and low cost. Use the timestamps below to jump to the idea you want, and if anything isn't clear, leave a question in the comments. Floating herb garden from bottles. The early sun slips between grape leaves and spills a warm gold across a row of handmade planters, and for a moment the ordinary becomes quietly miraculous. Old plastic bottles, once tossed without a thought, are now small vessels of life. Basil leaves unfurling like green flags, thyme spreading a soft carpet, rosemary rising with a noble, resinous scent. The scene feels familiar and new at the same time, like turning a well-worn object inside out to reveal a secret garden. Start simple. Choose bottles that are sturdy and similar in size so your hanging line stays balanced. Cut each bottle across the middle with a sharp blade, then sand or wrap the cut edge so it's safe to handle. A double layer of tape or a soft ribbon hides rough edges and gives a finished look. Use a strip of cotton or a short piece of rope as a wick if you want the planter to self-water. Thread it through the bottle neck and anchor it into the soil so water drawn from a small reservoir above or below keeps roots gently moist. The trick is not to overcomplicate the mechanism. A little capillary action goes a long way with herbs. Soil matters more than most people expect. A light, well-draining mix keeps roots happy and prevents the soggy odors that ruin even the prettiest planter. Combine good potting soil with a handful of compost and a small fraction of perlite or coarse sand. This makes the texture airy but nutrient-rich. Fill the bottles loosely, firming them only enough so that seedlings don't slump when you lift the planter to hang it. Plant shallow-rooted herbs such as basil, chives, parsley, and oregano first. They forgive small containers and reward you quickly. Think about sunlight as you arrange your hangers. Herbs like basil and rosemary love the sun and should face the brightest exposure, while parsley and chives appreciate a touch of morning shade. Stagger the bottles at slightly different heights so each plant meets the light it needs. It also adds visual rhythm and depth, which the camera will love. If you're capturing the project on video, shoot a gliding wide shot that reveals the whole pergola and finish with close, lingering frames on textured leaves, water droplets, and the gentle movement of a robin alighting on a bottle. Aesthetic details make the difference between functional and enchanting. Wrap the midsection in natural jute or paint each bottle in soft pastels to echo a cottage palette. Weatherproof acrylics and natural twine age beautifully. They fade into the landscape instead of shouting for attention. For a tactile, handmade feel, not the cords with simple macrame loops that cradle the bottle and show off the plant, rather than hide it. Small, consistent design choices read better on screen than a jumble of colors and materials. Maintenance is unspectacular but essential. Check the water reservoir once or twice a week, especially in warm weather. Prune regularly to encourage bushier growth. Harvest with intention and film those quick, satisfying snips. Viewers love seeing hands at work. If a plant shows stress, swap it to a larger pot or pair it with a companion that enjoys similar conditions. Reuse and rotate. As plants finish, replace them with seasonal varieties so the hanging garden always tells a story of time and care. Safety and sustainability go hand in hand. Smooth all cut edges, secure hangers to solid rafters, and distribute weight evenly. Use reclaimed materials for the supporting beams or repurpose an old ladder as a dramatic vertical display. Keep a small tray below each planter while potting to catch soil and protect surfaces. These small practices protect your space and make the project replicable for others who want to try it at home. Finally, let the garden breathe. Don't force every bottle into perfect symmetry. Allow a few herbs to spill and grow wild. That imperfection is what makes it feel lived in, friendly, and true. When you film or photograph your creation, capture the in-between moments. A bee pausing on lavender, the way dew beads on a basil leaf at dawn, a shadow sliding across a cobblestone path. Those tiny details are the language that turns a DIY tutorial into a gentle invitation, an open door to try, to remake, and to find beauty in what we already have. If you'd like, I can adapt this into a narrated voiceover timed for your footage, or turn it into a shorter, snappier script for social reels and thumbnails. Bottle blossom green wall. The wall catches the morning like a secret kept in sunlight, rows of recycled bottles cradling a green, fragrant tapestry that hums with bees and the soft hush of leaves. Imagine a courtyard where a tired stone face is given new life. Bottles sliced and mounted into a wooden lattice, each one a little pocket of soil from which tomatoes spill like tiny lanterns, basil fans out in glossy waves, and lavender threads its scent into the cool air. It looks effortless because it feels natural, but there are small, honest choices behind that magic. Begin with the frame, a sturdy timber lattice or reclaimed pallet, anchored into sound masonry or a post set firmly in the earth. The frame should be strong enough to bear wet soil and plants. Plan for more weight than you think. Use bottles of similar diameter so the planting line reads clean from a distance. Stagger them slightly so each plant can drink sunlight instead of being shadowed by the row above. When you cut the bottles, take time to sand or wrap the edges. A smooth rim makes the structure safer to work on and kinder on hands during planting and harvest. Think of the bottles as small ecosystems. Punch a few drainage holes near the bottom, then fill with a light, airy potting mix blended with a handful of compost and a dash of perlite or coarse sand. This keeps roots from sitting in water while still holding enough moisture for thirsty herbs and quick-fruiting plants. For strawberries and cherry tomatoes, add a little extra compost to feed their fruiting habit. For mint and lavender, slightly lean the mix toward free draining so the roots breathe and the flavors concentrate. Watering is simple if you design it to be. A thin wick running into a reservoir, or a slow drip tape threaded behind the rows, will keep moisture steady without daily fuss. If your site bakes in midday sun, place a shallow water tray beneath the bottom row during summer. It catches runoff and gives thirsty roots a second chance to sip. Regular light feedings with a balanced organic liquid fertilizer will keep the wall productive. Heavy feeding all the time makes foliage lush but reduces the intensity of flavors, so feed with intention, not habit. Plant selection and placement make the wall feel intentional rather than crowded. Put sun-loving, compact varieties on the brightest rows: basil, thyme, oregano, and compact cherry tomatoes that won't overburden the bottle. Reserve partially shaded pockets for parsley, chives, and lettuces. Let a few trailing plants tumble down the edges to read like a soft border. Those little spills of green are what turn tidy engineering into a living, breathing scene. Rotate seasonal crops, winter herbs and pansies, summer cherry tomatoes and marigolds, so the wall tells the passing of time instead of sticking to one static look. Aesthetic details are not frivolous. They help your project read on camera and in the garden. Paint the bottle caps a single color to create visual rhythm, or leave the bottles clear to trap light and resemble tiny stained panes. Use natural twine or simple macrame loops for hanging. These tactile elements photograph warmly and age gracefully in weather. Small design choices like consistent spacing, matching bottlenecks, and tidy labels for each herb will make your tutorial feel replicable and trustworthy to viewers. Maintenance is gentle if scheduled. A weekly walk to snip spent flowers, check for pests, and top up water reservoirs. Watch for aphids on tender shoots, pinch them off or blast them with a firm spray of water early in the morning, then follow with an organic soap rinse if needed. When a plant outgrows its bottle, gently slide it out and transplant it into a larger pot, and replace the space with a quick-growing seasonal seedling so the wall never looks empty. When you film, invite the camera close. Begin with a slow, wide reveal that shows the wall in place, then move into intimate, human frames. A gentle pair of hands burying roots, soil spilling softly, droplets catching the sun on a basil leaf. A short time-lapse of new seedlings unfurling, paired with the sound of wind through grape leaves or the soft clink of bottles, makes viewers feel present. Capture harvesting moments. The satisfying snip of a basil stem, the first strawberry tugged free, because those are the small rewards that inspire someone watching to try it themselves. This is a project that quietly argues for care. It asks only for reclaimed bottles, patient hands, and a little thoughtfulness about light and water. The result is a living mural that feeds the table, invites pollinators, and turns a plain wall into a place people want to linger. If you'd like, I can convert this into a timed voiceover for your footage, or trim it down into punchy lines for short-form reels and captions so the lesson is as shareable as it is beautiful. Rainbow bottle flower planters. The rainbow row catches the eye first. A tidy parade of painted bottles, each one a small, sunlit pot spilling color and petal. Walk closer and the scene opens. The soft fan of pansies, the upright cheer of daisies, the velvety clusters of petunias, each plant finding its own place in the curve of a recycled bottle. It feels like somebody taught an ordinary garden to sing in chromatic notes, and the air tastes of warm soil and early morning nectar. If you want to build this at home, begin where the light is best. Choose a fence, low wall, or shelf that faces morning sun. Most bedding flowers thrive when they greet gentle daylight first. Use bottles that are similar in size so the line reads clean from a distance. Those repeated shapes are what turn craft into composition. Cut carefully. Mark the cut with a permanent pen, score it slowly with a utility knife, then finish with a sharp pair of shears. Sand the rim until it's smooth or cover it with a strip of burlap, washi tape, or a band of jute for a softer edge that looks handmade rather than hurried. Soil is the secret that keeps the colors bright. A well-draining mix, 2 parts quality potting soil, 1 part compost, and a handful of perlite or coarse sand, gives both structure and breadth to shallow-rooted flowers. Fill bottles loosely so roots have room to spread, firm only enough to stop soil slipping when you hang them. For drainage, a few small holes near the base are enough. If you plan to hang the bottles upside down, consider a thin wick or capillary system so moisture returns to the plant rather than pooling and causing root rot. Painting takes the project from useful to unforgettable. Use an outdoor acrylic primer first, then 2 thin coats of weatherproof paint rather than 1 thick layer. It dries more evenly and resists cracking in sun and rain. Pastel tones red soft on camera, while richer hues pop against green foliage. If you prefer the clear bottle look, Leave the plastic translucent so morning light filters like stained glass through the soil and leaves. Placement matters almost as much as the plants. Put sun lovers such as geraniums and petunias on the brightest rows. Reserve gentler species like impatiens or small lettuces for shaded pockets. Let some plants trail. Those cascades soften the geometry and make the installation feel lived in. Rotate seasonal varieties so the wall tells a quiet story of passing months. Pansies and violas when the air is cool, marigolds and geraniums through summer, and fresh herbs tucked among the flowers for a practical, fragrant touch. Caring for the rainbow planters is simple ritual rather than chore. Water deeply but infrequently so roots reach down and learn to be resilient. Feed lightly with an organic liquid tonic every few weeks to encourage blooms without creating floppy growth. Pinch spent flowers and deadhead. The garden responds fast to small, regular attention. When pests appear, a friendly spray of water or diluted soap often does the job. Reach for harsher treatments only as a last resort. If you plan to film your process, tell the story of the making more than the instructions. Open with a wide reveal that shows the entire row basking in light, then move in for tactile close-ups. The rasp of the knife on plastic, paint brushed in slow strokes, soil sliding into a bottle mouth, a hand tucking a young plant into its new home. Time lapses of seedlings swelling into blooms are irresistibly satisfying. Quick harvesting clips, a gentle snip, a handful of petals, keep viewers imagining themselves doing the same. Most of all, allow imperfection to be part of the charm. A slightly crooked bottle, a sun-faded patch of paint, a trailing vine that spills beyond the edge, these are the small proofs that a place is used and loved. This project asks only for curiosity, a few recycled bottles, and the willingness to sit with a pot of soil and listen. Try it once, and you'll find that a row of painted plastic can turn a path into a parade, a fence into a festival, and a simple afternoon into something quietly unforgettable. Smart Bottle Planter System. Dawn finds the garden quiet except for the soft patter of droplets, tiny, patient hands of water that wake the soil. Look closer and you'll see the cleverness. Turned and tethered plastic bottles, each one a small reservoir and a slow-breathing bucket of life. They hang like a low constellation above clay pots, or stand inverted like delicate bells that feed roots through a braided wick. The effect is simple and honest. Plants that receive what they need, when they need it, without fuss, and a backyard that hums with bees and small, steady miracles. If you want to build this, start with the thought that balance is everything. Select bottles of similar volume so the flow is predictable. Cut the bottle cleanly where it will hold soil or where it will invert. Score first, then use a sharp knife and finish the rim by sanding or wrapping it in thin tape. For an inverted self-watering setup, use a short length of cotton rope or braided wick threaded through the cap and knotted inside the bottle so moisture travels by capillary action to the plant below. If you prefer bottles suspended above pots, leave a reservoir cap on and allow a single slow hole or a wick to feed the pot. This keeps water steady without drowning roots. Soil is quiet engineering. Mix a light potting compost with a handful of well-rotted compost and a splash of perlite or coarse sand so water moves but does not pool. Fill loosely so roots can explore. Press only as much as needed to stop the soil sliding when you lift the bottle. For herbs like basil, parsley, and mint, aim for a looser mix to encourage fragrant oils to concentrate. For fruiting plants such as strawberries, mix in a little more compost to supply the extra energy they demand. Placement shapes success. Hang the bottles where morning light arrives first. Herbs love the gentle rise of the day. If your site takes full sun at noon, Stagger the hangers to give lower plants a soft shield and alternate sun lovers with partial shade varieties. In hot weather, add a shallow tray beneath your rows to catch runoff and let thirsty roots take a second helping, or shade the bottles with a light cloth during the hottest hours to prevent soil from baking dry. Care is a slow ritual rather than a burden. Check reservoirs weekly in warm months, top up gently, and feed with a diluted organic tonic every few weeks to keep blooms generous. Pinch flowers for bushier growth, and when a bottle becomes root-bound, transplant the plant into a larger pot and refresh the bottle with a seasonal seedling. For pests, a firm blast of water often does the trick. Follow with a gentle soap rinse only if necessary. When you tell this project on camera, let the craft and the comfort speak together. Open with a wide reveal that shows the rows of suspended bottles catching the sun, then move in for tactile close-ups. A wick threaded through a cap, paint brushed on a rim, soil spilling in slow, satisfying granules. Capture a short time-lapse of the drip steadying into movement, followed by harvesting moments, snipping a basil stem, a hand cradling ripe strawberries. These human gestures turn instructions into invitation. Finally, keep the finish humble and beautiful. Natural twine, weatherproof paint in soft hues, and a few imperfect knots are what make a utilitarian idea feel like a place you want to linger in. This is gardening that mends, not just the earth, but the small habit of paying attention. Try one bottle, then 10, let patience do the rest, and the garden will answer with flavor, color, and a kind of quiet, shared abundance. Charming bottle bird feeder do I. Morning pulls itself in the garden and everything leans a little closer. Lavender breathes, grape leaves hold light, and an ordinary plastic bottle becomes a small stage where birds perform the quiet work of life. Hang one from a pergola beam or a strong branch and you'll see how quickly the space changes. Seed spills like a soft cascade, finches and tits arrive with confident flickers, and the air fills with the gentle punctuation of wings. It looks effortless, but the magic depends on a few careful choices you can copy at home. Begin with a bottle that feels sturdy in your hand. Clear, reusable PET bottles work well because you can watch seed levels and moisture. Darker glass bottles are beautiful but heavier and less forgiving if dropped. Mark the feeding opening at a comfortable perch height and cut slowly. Score first, then slice with a sharp utility knife so the edge comes out clean. Sand or cover the rim with twine or fabric to protect tender bird feet. For perches, a short dowel through holes near the opening or a small spoon threaded through the bottle gives birds a secure place to land and peck. Avoid skinny sticks that might twist or break under a bird's weight. Think about seed choice as a quiet invitation. Mixed wild bird blends draw the widest variety, while sunflower hearts are a feast that attracts larger, showy guests. If you want more insectivores, add mealworms occasionally. For seasonal interest, switch to Niger, thistle, in winter for siskins and goldfinches. Keep seed dry by sloping the opening and drilling a tiny drainage hole at the base to let rain escape. Trapped moisture is the enemy of clean feeders. Replace old seed promptly. Moldy grain is harmful, so a quick weekly check is one of the kindest things you can do for your feathered visitors. Placement is part craft and part safety. Hang feeders where birds have nearby cover, shrubs, hedges, or a pergola trellis, so they can dash to shelter if a sparrowhawk passes. Keep them a safe distance from windows to reduce collisions, and avoid hanging directly above delicate plantings that might suffer from dropped hulls. If you have pets, position feeders where curious paws cannot reach them. Birds appreciate a calm, predictable dining room. Maintenance is gentle ritual. Empty and wash the feeder every 2 weeks with hot water and a little vinegar, rinse thoroughly, and let it dry in sun before refilling. Inspect for cracks, frayed twine, or clogged holes. Repair or replace parts before they fail. During wet seasons, consider a small roof or a plastic canopy above the feeder to keep seed dry. These few minutes of care keep the visitors healthy and the display beautiful. Small design details make a big difference on camera and in the garden. Paint the cap a single soft color to create visual rhythm across multiple feeders, or leave them clear so sun catches the seed like amber. Simple perches and tidy knots read better on film than fussed with decoration. The story you want to tell is one of ease and welcome. When you shoot, start with a wide frame that shows the pergola and the ripple of flowers beneath, then move into close-ups. A tiny beak picking at a seed, a wing mid-beat, the slow fall of hulls onto cobblestone. Time lapses of dawn turning to day, paired with sound of birdsong, give viewers a slow, immersive reward. Invite variety into the habit. Try hanging a row of identical feeders to create a steady line of activity, or mix heights and styles for a more painterly effect. Swap seed types from week to week and watch the guest list change. Sometimes the smallest change, a different blend, a new perch, brings a surprising visitor to the table. Encourage watchers to start modestly. One feeder, one reliable spot, a short checklist of cleaning and topping up. The most helpful thing you can show is how easy it is to begin. In the end, this is less about perfect craft than about generosity. A hung bottle is a small offering: water, shelter, and seed. It asks only for attention and a little maintenance, and returns with birds that bring color, sound, and a living rhythm to your garden. Film that rhythm, share the steps with simple shots, and invite your audience to try it themselves, because the truest reward of a project like this is not the Instagram shot, but the tiny, regular visits of birds that make a yard feel gently, wonderfully alive. Magical bottle lantern lights. When evening settles and the garden exhales its last warm light, something quietly transformative can happen with the humblest of materials. A row of plastic bottles, once ordinary and forgettable, becomes a slow constellation of lanterns that invite neighbors to linger and cameras to linger longer. The trick is simple. Think of each bottle not as waste, but as a small lantern shell waiting for attention, light, and a gentle hand to finish it. Begin by choosing bottles that are sturdy and similar in diameter so their silhouettes read like a single design across the pergola or tree line. Score the plastic first, then cut with a sharp craft knife or a fine-toothed saw. If you have a rotary tool, it will make delicate patterns easier, but use it with a steady grip and protective eyewear. Smooth every cut rim with sandpaper or wrap it in jute or thin leather for a handmade finish that looks warm on camera. If you want cutout patterns that throw interesting shadows, trace a stencil lightly with a marker before you cut. Hearts, leaves, and geometric slits look charming against lavender or grape leaves. Lighting choices are the quiet hero of this idea. Use battery-powered warm white LEDs or tiny solar bottle lights rather than open flames. They are safer, light instantly at dusk, and give you years of gentle glow without risk. For a subtle, flickering candle effect, pick LEDs marked flicker, or add a small diffuser inside the bottle so the light reads soft instead of harsh. If you plan wired installations, route cables through a hidden channel and use outdoor-rated cable and connectors, yet the simplest, most mobile option is always solar caps or replaceable AA battery modules tucked into the bottleneck. Hanging and balance matter more than most DIY videos show. Anchor hooks into a sturdy pergola beam or use a spreader bar if you hang many lanterns in a cluster so weight is distributed. Natural twine and macrame cradles give a tactile, cottage look, Thin metal hooks read cleaner and photograph like minimalist sculpture. Keep lanterns a comfortable height for viewers and guests to pass beneath without ducking, and stagger their height slightly to create depth when filmed. A rhythmic, slightly off-center arrangement looks deliberate and lived in, whereas a perfectly even line can sometimes feel staged. Weatherproofing extends the life of your lights. A light coat of outdoor primer followed by weatherproof acrylic keeps paint from flaking, and a dab of clear silicone around caps will stop rain from pooling in awkward places. If you're painting bottles, apply thin layers and allow complete drying between coats. Pastel shades soften the garden palette, while richer colors create drama against foliage. For a more luminous effect after dark, leave some bottles clear so the lead glows through the plastic as if bottled moonlight. When you craft your video, treat twilight as the protagonist. Start with a hook that shows the ordinary, an empty pergola or a row of bottles, then cut to the first match of light or the moment the solar cells wake and a line of lanterns breathes aliveness into the frame. Capture a time-lapse from golden hour into blue hour so viewers feel the reveal. Get close-ups of hands threading twine, the brush on a painted rim, and the tiny switch click that turns a lantern on. Sound matters. The soft scrape of brush on plastic, the whisper of leaves, distant crickets, and a warm instrumental underscore will make the footage feel lived in rather than staged. Short, human moments, someone pausing with a mug, a child's hand pointing, turn a tutorial into an invitation. Practical care is ordinary and shareable. Swap batteries before long gatherings, tuck spare LEDs in a small weatherproof box, and check mounting knots at the start of every season. If you want to be kind to wildlife, avoid blue-rich LEDs that can confuse nocturnal insects and pick warm tones that still attract pollinators during crepuscular hours. And because this is a project about reusing, keep a small box for future repairs. Extra twine, a tube of silicone, and a tiny brush for touch-ups will let your lanterns age gently instead of being tossed. Recycled bottle garden borders. Sunlight finds the path first, sliding in between leaves and setting the bottles along the edging aglow as if someone had lined the walkway with tiny, patient lanterns of color. Each bottle becomes a little container for a living thing. Marigolds bobbing in orange and yellow, pansies peeking shyly between scalloped rims, thyme and small herbs spilling like green lace. The effect is more than clever craft. It's a borrowed rhythm from wild meadows, a gentle nudge that turns an ordinary walk into a slow, blooming poem. Start with the right bottles. Uniform size makes the line read like a single, composed element from a distance. Varied sizes make it feel improvised and playful. Whatever you choose, clean them thoroughly and consider giving the exterior a light scuff so paint, if you paint, will adhere. If you prefer natural aging, let moss and patina form. If you want a cheerful parade, prime and paint in 2 thin coats so the color lasts and doesn't peel in sun or rain. Earthy terracotta and moss tones sit quietly among foliage, while a rainbow of bright hues will catch a camera's eye and delight neighborhood children. Cutting and finishing are small acts of care. Score slowly, then cut with a sharp utility blade and finish edges by sanding or covering with a band of jute or burlap. This protects hands and gives the border a tactile, handmade look. If you place bottles upside down as little planters, drill a gentle drainage hole or 2 so water doesn't pool and rot roots. For upright planters, a shallow layer of gravel under the soil helps drainage and keeps the plastic from sitting in mud after heavy rain. Soil matters more than most people expect. Use a light, well-draining mix. Good potting soil blended with a little compost and perlite or coarse sand is ideal for shallow containers. Fill loosely so roots can explore, and resist the urge to pack it down hard. Compacted soil chokes airflow and invites problems. Choose plants suited to small volumes: marigolds for color and pest resilience, pansies for cool season cheer, dwarf salvias and compact herbs for fragrance and function. Mix trailing varieties at the edges to soften geometry and let the installation breathe. Placement is both practical and visual. Line the path where morning light arrives first, that gentle sun wakes flowers without burning them in the afternoon. If the bottles will face harsh midday sun, plant with heat-tolerant varieties or provide a thin shade cloth during the hottest weeks. Keep the border a safe distance from heavy foot traffic to avoid crushed blooms and to let seed heads fall where birds can find them. On sloped paths, stagger the bottles slightly. This prevents sliding and creates a rhythm that guides the eye. Make watering easy. A shallow watering tray behind the row catches excess and returns moisture to the bottles below, while a thin soaker hose tucked behind the edging can run on a timer for hands-off care. In summer, check the soil every few days. Small containers dry quickly. Feed lightly with a balanced organic liquid fertilizer during the growing season. Too much fertilizer makes plants lush but weak. Rotate plants seasonally. Switch cool season pansies for summer marigolds and tuck in small herbs through winter where climate permits. Film the story rather than list the steps. Start with a wide reveal of the path and the way sunlight plays on the bottles, then move into close tactile shots. A thumb smoothing paint, soil spilling in slow, satisfying granules, fingers pressing a small seedling into place. Capture a time-lapse of rows blooming over weeks and include human moments. A hand pauses to prune, a child crouches to inspect a ladybug, because these are the scenes that make viewers imagine themselves trying the idea. Small design choices add warmth. A consistent cap color creates visual rhythm. Small labels tied with twine make the border useful as well as pretty. Let a few bottles be imperfect, slightly crooked, paint a little faded, so the edge reads lived in rather than staged. And think of this not as a single project but as an invitation. Start with a short stretch of path and expand over months. As the border grows, it tells the slow domestic story that viewers love, of things made, tended, and shared. Finally, keep the maintenance modest and the reward constant. A weekly walk to Deadhead, a quick check for drainage, a gentle refill of the watering tray, these are small rituals that keep the border singing. When you share the process on screen, close with the simple pleasure, the sound of bees, the rustle of leaves, the way the path looks different when you pass it in the morning light. That quiet transformation is the real lesson here, that with a few recycled bottles and some patient attention, we can turn a walkway into a living, breathing invitation to slow down. DIY Bottle Greenhouse Dome. Morning finds the dome before we do. Light pours through slatted plastic like 1,000 small windows, and the greenhouse inhales and holds summer in a soft, shimmering pocket. Walk closer and the bottles reveal their second life, not as waste, but as tiny panes that catch the sun and warm the soil beneath. Within this sheltered round, basil smells sweeter, lettuce unfurls quicker, and the first strawberries redden with a confidence that only gentle, steady warmth can bring. If you want to build one, begin by collecting. Similar size bottles make the surface read clean and make assembly easier. Wash them thoroughly and remove labels so sunlight can travel freely. Decide whether you will stack them whole, cut them in half, or interlock neck to base. Each choice changes the look and the build. A simple frame of PVC or a lightweight timber skeleton gives the dome shape. Attach bottles to the ribs with strong zip ties, stainless wire, or reused nylon cord. And always test a small section first so you understand how the pieces bear weight when wet. For a more refined edge, cut bottlenecks and use the caps as small connectors, or thread a continuous rod through aligned necks to produce a neat, modular curve. Think of ventilation and access as part of the design. A greenhouse that breathes will reward you with healthy plants. A hinged panel or a roll-up flap lets morning air in on hot days. Narrow vents near the top release trapped heat, while low openings invite cool air to sweep through. Water management matters too. Place the dome on a level base and consider a shallow gravel trench to catch excess runoff, or situate it on a sun-warmed cobbled path like the pictures, where water can escape without pooling. For heating in cooler months, a small dark barrel of water inside will absorb daylight and release warmth at night. For summer, shade cloth over part of the dome keeps tender seedlings from baking. Soil and plants inside the dome ought to be chosen with intention. Shallow beds of loose, compost-rich mix favor quick crops. Lettuces, baby spinach, basil, fast radishes, and small cherry tomatoes will reward you faster than long-season giants. Rotate crops seasonally, cold hardy greens in early spring and late autumn, heat-loving herbs and fruit in the brimming heart of summer, so the interior always looks productive rather than overcrowded. Keep a hand lens handy. The dome's intimacy means pests can multiply if unnoticed, so early inspection and gentle, organic remedies will keep balance without harsh sprays. Practical finishing touches lift the project from clever to enduring. A weatherproof seal around the base stops drafts and critter entry, UV-resistant paint on any timber part slows decay, and a removable section or neat door makes maintenance and harvesting quiet and comfortable. Consider the dome's footprint. Lighter, smaller domes are lovely for patios and courtyards. Larger domes need a stronger, anchored frame and a plan for how they will be entered and mended over time. Reuse what you have first, and buy minimally only where strength or safety demands it. When you film this transformation, treat the dome like a small theater. Start wide so viewers feel the surprise of a curving shell in a garden corner, then move in for the satisfying, tactile moments. Hands threading ties, light refracting through bottle walls, droplets beading on leaves. Time-lapses of seedlings unfurling, or of the dome at golden hour while butterflies hover at the door, give the viewer a sense of change and reward. Keep sound intimate, the scrape of a knife, the soft thud of soil, a distant songbird, and let the edit breathe with long, calm frames that mirror the slow, patient work of gardening. In the end, the dome is both shelter and story, a small, public demonstration that ordinary plastic can become warmth, protection, and food. It teaches patience, invites curiosity, and asks only a steady hand and a little tending. Try a modest model first. The satisfaction of stepping into a tiny climate of your own making is the kind of quiet triumph that turns a single weekend project into a lasting habit. Eco bottle watering system. Dawn spills gold across the beds and the rows answer with a quiet, steady shimmer, not from hoses or fuss, but from small, inverted bottles that breathe water into the soil like patient hands. Watch a single droplet form at the cap, hesitate, and then fall in a thin, measured ribbon. Multiply that by a dozen and you have a slow, honest irrigation system that asks for very little and gives much in return. This is the kind of garden trick that feels like a secret passed from neighbor to neighbor. Simple, kind to plants, and kinder to time. Begin by choosing bottles that are sound and similar in size so the rhythm of your rows reads cleanly. Clear PET bottles let you see the water level at a glance. Heavier glass can work but needs sturdier supports. Rinse them thoroughly and remove labels so sunlight won't trap mildew between plastic and paper. The heart of the system is the cap. A single tiny hole in the cap or a small series of pinpricks will let water drip slowly. If you prefer a more controlled feed, thread a cotton wick through the cap and knot it inside. The wick draws water by capillary action and releases it gently into the soil below. Test each bottle's flow before you plant. A hole that's too large will flood, too small will barely trickle. Aim for a steady bead every few seconds for most herbs and vegetables. Placement is both practical and poetic. Set bottles along each planting furrow where roots can find them easily, or suspend them above pots so gravity and wick do the work. 4 beds under sun. Bury the bottle neck just below the soil surface or anchor it to a short stake so it cannot tip. If you're placing bottles near young vines or tomato cages, cradle them where runoff won't wash seedlings away. A small shallow trench or gravel ring beneath each bottle helps catch and redirect excess while preventing pooling that attracts mosquitoes. Remember, this is slow water, not soak and run. The aim is to keep soil evenly moist rather than sodden. Soil mix and plants should match the method. Loose, compost-rich soil with good drainage accepts steady moisture better than a compacted bed. Herbs such as basil, thyme, and oregano adore this breathing rhythm. Strawberries and young tomatoes benefit from steady feeding but will need a slightly richer mix. For thirsty summer crops, choose larger bottles or shorten the drip interval by slightly enlarging the cap hole. For delicate seedlings, reduce the flow and increase the frequency of checks. A simple way to measure is to mark the bottle neck and count how long it takes to drop a 1/4 inch. Adjust accordingly until you find a pace that keeps roots happy without drowning them. Practical care is almost ritual. Check reservoirs weekly in warm weather and after storms, top them gently, and scrape away any algae inside the bottle when you refill. Clean caps occasionally and swap cotton wicks every few months if they begin to harden. In regions where mosquitoes are a concern, keep bottles sealed except for the drip point, and position them so any standing water drains freely. Collect rainwater in a barrel to refill bottles and you'll close the loop, a small act of reuse folding back into water-wise gardening. If you're filming this for viewers, tell the sensory story as well as the how-to. Open on a wide shot of sun on soil, then move in for tactile details. The slow bead forming at the cap, a hand testing flow, soil darkening beneath a drip. Capture a short time-lapse of a day or two so the audience sees the steady effect, and include close-ups of root health and harvest moments. A quick handful of basil, a blinking row of green. Sound counts. The soft click of droplets, a distant bee, a breath of wind through lavender. These make the tutorial feel like sitting beside someone who's tended this plot for years. This system rewards patience. It turns a handful of bottles into an attentive, low-tech guardian for your plants, and it opens the possibility that careful, small design can change a garden's whole tempo. Try one row first, watch how the soil responds, then scale up. In the end, the lesson is quiet and generous. Slow water, given routinely, brings steady growth, and the best DIYs are the ones that keep giving long after the project is done. Rustic bottle garden chandelier. The pergola takes on a new story as evening arrives. An ordinary cluster of recycled bottles becomes a chandelier that makes the whole garden lean in and listen. Warm light pours through plastic like honey, throwing soft patterns across the table and vines above. It feels deliberate and effortless at once, a humble object given a second life, and a room that did not exist before now, created with hands and a little patience. Start where structure matters. Choose a sturdy ring or timber frame that will support the weight of many filled bottles. Test the load on a strong beam before you commit. A chandelier suspended from a single hook should have its fastening reinforced and, where possible, attached to a rafter or a joist rather than just a thin roofing. Chains and stainless connectors are small expenses that pay back in safety and calm. Remember that glass and heavy containers need proportionally stronger support, while plastic bottles allow for a lighter frame and easier handling. Work from simple geometry. Arrange bottles in layers so light falls softly rather than in a harsh, single plane. A larger outer ring, a narrower inner ring, and a small central cluster create depth and the pleasing silhouette of a classic chandelier. If you want color, keep it consistent. A palette of 2 or 3 tones reads much cleaner on camera than too many competing hues. For an organic look, leave most bottles clear and paint only the caps or the inner ring. Light finds translucent plastic beautifully, and that subtlety often reads better in footage than a painted parade. Choose the right light source. Battery-powered warm white LED string lights are the best blend of safety and effect. They glow like candles without an open flame, they stay cool to the touch, and they are easy to replace. Solar modules can work if you want a fully off-grid feel, but test them first. They need consistent sun exposure to last the evening. Avoid high K, blue LEDs that attract nocturnal insects and instead favor warm tones that flatter faces and plants. Conceal the wiring inside bottlenecks or behind a false ring so viewers see the glow and not the hardware. Cutting and finishing are the hands-on parts that make the piece feel made, not manufactured. If you cut bottle patterns, score gently and use a fine saw or rotary tool. Sand all edges smooth and hide any raw plastic with twine, leather strips, or a neat bead of silicone. Small details, a tidy knot, a painted cap, a wrapped chain link, read beautifully in close-up. Weatherproof every exterior touch with an outdoor primer and thin coats of acrylic paint if you choose color. Finish with a clear matte sealer for longevity. Think maintenance before hanging. Make the design modular so that individual bottles or light modules can be removed for cleaning or battery change. Keep spare LEDs, spare caps, and an extra length of chain in a dry box. If you plan to use the chandelier for dinners, keep a small ladder and a safety checklist for turning it on and off. Check fastenings, test connections, and make sure nothing flammable hangs nearby. These small rituals protect both your guests and the aesthetic you worked so carefully to create. When you film the project, treat light as character. Begin with a daytime wide shot of the pergola, empty, expectant, and cut to hands at work. A rope being measured, a bottle rim sanded, LEDs tucked inside. Let the first evening reveal be slow. A long, steady glide under the chandelier as a single switch is pressed. Capture the warm spill on faces, the clink of glasses, and the silent stars above. Close-ups of textured details, a paintbrush whispering across plastic, a knot cinched tight, give viewers tactile pleasure. Short time-lapses of sunset into lamplight will show the transformation in a heartbeat and make the video irresistible for social platforms. Finally, design for hospitality. The best chandeliers don't ask to be admired only, they invite lingering. Place your table beneath it, set simple linens and fresh bread, and film a quiet toast. Encourage viewers gently. Show them how easy it is to start with a single ring and grow the project over weekends. Ask them to try one bottle first and share photos. The most persuasive thing you can give is permission to begin. When light spills through your finished chandelier and the garden tilts toward the glow, you'll see how small acts of reuse can make an evening feel like a celebration. Make the first bottle, then add the second. The rest will come when the table is set and someone says, for the first time, stay a little longer. Thanks for watching. If one of these bottle projects inspired you, please try it and post a photo. I love seeing your builds. If you want printable templates or a shopping list for any project in this video, say which one in the comments and I'll pin a resource. Hit like if you learned something new, subscribe to Backyard Fortune for weekly DIY garden ideas, and share this video with a friend who's ready to turn trash into a tiny oasis. See you in the next build.